dark. You probably be all dark. There we go. I always have that the wrong way. See? Good morning. I tried to do something with it before we went live. Good morning. How are you? We went live like probably 30 seconds early because I wanted to see if this was set up right. We're not actors. We don't play ones on. There we go. Sorry, is that annoying? Play ones on TV. Um, you got a lot going on up here.
Well, I didn't get a mohawk, if you're wondering.
What? Okay, sorry, y'all. Sorry. Anyways, good morning. I'm Amber,
I'm Tim.
and we're two of the 5 Bradshaw family members that moved off grid from the city by the beach and the beautiful ocean of South Carolina to the Smoky Mountains in East Tennessee, where we live off grid, and we filmed our journey. So if you saw it, thank you for watching. If you didn't, I don't know if you can Google search that joker or what. Good morning. Hey, good morning. How are y'all? You be styling.
Thank you.
he be styling.
I fit right in with the rest. I mean, I call it hillbilly heaven.
Were you saying everybody is a hot mess like that? You need help, son. So anyway, sorry we haven't been here again. It's hard to be consistent in this life. Consistent online because we're walking the walk, and we just don't have time to spend in front of the screen as much as we'd like to. Trust me, if we had the ability to do so, we would be pumping out YouTube how-to videos of how we do everything. I'd be following around Timmy with a camera all day and just capturing every moment of all the amazing things that he builds. But it's just us. So we can't. Why are you looking at me like that?
We had all of that when we lived in South Carolina.
I followed you around with a camera all day and didn't do nothing?
No, but we had the internet that was, I guess it was fiber optic, and it was,
Oh, yeah. No, I don't have, I got a hair hanging in my face, y'all. Hang on a sec. 2 more will grow in its place. Here, do you want me to do that to you?
No.
No, I'm talking about having the time to do it. I don't have the time to follow you around with a camera. I mean, we actually found a workaround to have decent enough internet so we could do these live. And it took us 5 years to figure it out, but it was a member at our church that helped us. And if you don't know this, because I don't know if this is information that's available everywhere, but our local library it's not our local library, but it's in the county next to us. Hang on. Sherry says, my hair looks about the same right now. Dressed in overalls and mud boots. Has to weed eat, getting overgrown. You go, girl. And thank God you're wearing those mud boots because they're slick and the ticks won't stick to them. Ticks are insane this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the hotspot thing. You can go to the local library in Sevier County next to us and check out a hotspot. Free. You can only keep it, is it 2 weeks or 1 week or something like that? I think you get it 2 weeks, something a long time. And so a friend of ours that volunteers there let us borrow his. He had it checked out to see if it would even work here. Lo and behold, this free little hotspot picked up a teeny little bar. And that teeny little bar was better than the satellite internet we were getting and paying $230 a month for. So we gave it back to him, thanked him profusely, and then we ordered it, and we went from spending $230 a month on horrible connection to $60 a month, and it's pretty stable. Knock on wood.
How you like that?
Yeah. So there's your little golden nugget for the day. And this, now mind you, our cell phones don't work here. So the booster, even though it's still kind of considered a cell phone, for whatever reason, it has a better signal than our cell phones do. So there you go. I didn't even tell you what we're talking about today because you kind of woke up and just sat down.
Okay, what are we talking about?
Are you awake yet? Maybe you need to take another sip of coffee.
Okay.
Good morning. Get your coffee. You got to get your coffee. This is called coffee conversation for a reason, y'all. These cups ain't empty. Do you see that right there?
That's the
That's
real
my
deal.
coffee. And it'll put hair on your, well, not his, but it'll put hair on your chest.
It'll put hair on your chin.
On your chin. There you go. But we've been busy, so let's do a little update. I had knee replacement surgery, and it has been very long and very hard. And compared to other people that I know that have gotten it, I feel like mine was worse. So it's just because I couldn't take the pain meds, y'all. I was allergic to all the pain meds they gave me, and over-the-counter Tylenol just doesn't cut it when you go through something like this. However, I was released from my physical therapy Thursday. They came to our house. We were very blessed with that. And I had a great therapist who just was really, really passionate about helping me on our terrain, not just meet their little goals that they set for every patient that has knee therapy, but she worked with me on balance, on, tripping over stumps. She worked with me on going and feeding the livestock. She was just a huge blessing.
Yeah.
So we're thankful to that. And if you ever live in the Cobb County, Sevier County area, and you need a physical therapist, I got a gal for you. But anyhow, and you've been really busy the last couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, I've been busy, but ever since Amber got her knee surgery, I've been pretty busy. I don't.
Yo, Timmy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take that away. I was sitting here talking to somebody else while y'all were chatting.
Really?
No, Timmy, you've been amazing. And I think I said that last time, so I'll say it again. You've been amazing. Out of all the surgeries I've had, this was number 12. Not the same situation, but you were above and beyond the best helpmate I could have ever asked for with the surgery. There you go.
Thank you.
He's had to do it all, y'all. He's had to do it all. I mean, he had to lift my leg up, put my leg down, put me in that little machine that makes me move, get my ice, listen to me cry, help me, get me dressed. I mean, I was pathetic. I couldn't do any of it. And, help me walk, everything. I couldn't do anything but complain. No, I wasn't horrible. Was that horrible?
Well, it was inspiring.
Wait, you didn't say no.
No, you were
Okay.
You were fine. And inspiring to hear the doctor said, hey, it's going to be a little tough at first. That's what the pain meds are for. And
oh yeah, that was a great concept.
It's before you know it, she was through that cycle and able to get up and get around, and she didn't have to take a whole lot of meds because what she was taking really didn't work. So
I just didn't take it. If you're doing something and it don't work, quit doing it.
She's tough, man. I mean, even the doctor said, wow.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
I didn't have a choice. This one little combo of meds, I actually thought I was going to die. I was like, Timmy, something's not right. I couldn't talk. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't lay back. I couldn't stand up. And I just knew. I felt my chest being really weird. I felt unable to speak. And I had a horrible reaction. And that's the closest I think I've ever felt like I was going to die.
And I think another blessing that came out of it is she doesn't have to take her blood pressure medicine.
Oh, my
anymore.
gosh. Did we talk about that before?
That is
Listen to this, y'all. For as long as I've been an adult, and they test your blood pressure, I've had high blood pressure, and I fought it for years. I was skinny when this happened, too. So don't think it's a weight thing, because that has nothing to do with it. Well, it has something to do with it for some people, but it had nothing to do with me. I was 128 pounds, and they told me I had high blood pressure and I needed to be on meds. So I was taking supplements, I was doing herbs, I changed the diet, I did all this stuff, and I still couldn't get it regulated. So for years, I've been on blood pressure medicine. Well, since we moved to Tennessee, they've really struggled with regulating it. And I was on 3 different meds, taking them 2 different times a day. And still the lowest they could get it was like 150 something over 90 something. And finally my doctor said, well, that's the best we're going to do. I'm happy with that. And so we had the surgery April 13th. They kept taking they have you hooked up to monitors. I stayed the night in the hospital. And my blood pressure was like 117 over, when it was 117 over 70 something. And I'm like, wow, that's low. And then I realized it could, the meds and things that you get out the hospital. But since leaving the hospital and coming home, I couldn't take my blood pressure medicine because my pressure was too low. And like I said, I was taking different meds, two different meds 3 times a day. And the physical therapist comes here twice a week and they check it twice a week. I have been beautiful numbers since day one. I've never gone above, I think the highest it's been is 133/88. And I can't explain it. And even the doctor said, well, sometimes your
I
blood.
can explain
Oh,
it.
God, it's a God thing. I'm sorry. It's a God thing. Definitely a God thing. So, yeah, if you have high blood pressure and you're fighting it, maybe get your knee replaced. I don't know, but it was crazy. So I forgot. I'm sorry. That was a blessing. That was a huge blessing. I'm looking at this and it looks like I just stuck my finger in a light socket. Y'all, I can't get over it. When we're talking to you, it's almost like looking in the mirror. Oh, yeah, I guess next to you, I look good.
Both of mine.
Next to you, I look good. No.
I got to do something with this before we go to church.
Yeah.
I can't go to church.
No. Like I've been asking you to cut it for a couple days. Why haven't you let me?
Jock might not let me through the door today.
Locking the door? But Timmy's been busy. So don't think that he's just been waiting on me sitting in the house. Mm-hmm. He started building a 10-foot by 40-foot front porch, milling all that lumber. And I told him, I said, if you mill everything, the framing, we'll buy the decking boards. Because he milled the lumber for our side porch. And that was the fall of 2018. And it hasn't been quite 5 years, but it needs to be replaced because we never sealed it. We never sealed it, and it's been sitting out in the elements.
It's low to the ground too, so it stays pretty wet.
Oh, are you talking about the pool deck?
No, the lower deck going
to the bathhouse.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, and snow sits on it and stuff, but I didn't want that to happen with this. I want this to be our forever deck because you can't see it. I'll have to share a picture later, but it is our whole south-facing view. And our solar we always intended to move our solar on the roof of that deck. And because it's south-facing, it's going to be at the perfect angle. And who wants to look at a bunch of solar panels when you have the mountains to look at? It's very obstructive in your view. It takes away from the beauty. I mean, it's gratifying to see it because it's producing energy, but it takes away from the beauty. So, but anyhow, that's what you've been working on. And I told him I'd buy the decking boards so they don't rot. So we did. We bought the decking boards, and now we're ready.
We got them all.
Now that he's almost, to that point of putting them all down, I'm like, okay, now I got this and this and this for you to do. I can't wait till you're done with your project so I can get them on the next. Sometimes I start them before he even finishes. So today, I forgot what we're supposed to talk about. We're supposed to talk about compromise. Compromise.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
Compromise on the homestead is a biggie. Nobody's really a fan of compromise, just so you know. Unless you're wanting the other person to do it, then you're a fan of it. It's a hard one to do, especially when you have a goal that you want to achieve or you have a vision that you want to see to fruition. And I have to tell you, I'm not a great person with compromise. Although I find them doing it all the time. Yeah, I do it. I'm not saying I do it gracefully. I do it kicking and screaming. What about you? Do you think you compromise gracefully?
I stomp my feet and cry and roll around on the floor. And
now you're teasing me. I don't do that, y'all. I don't cry and stomp my feet. I get mad and threaten violence sometimes, but I don't cry and stomp my feet. No, you'll complain until then I compromise because you whine so much. And it's subtle whining. It's like, or we won't even be talking about the subject. And I'll be sipping coffee. And he'll go, and I'm like, what? He goes, I'm just really not looking forward to doing blah, blah, blah. And we might have even not talked about blah, blah, blah in a really long time. But he knows I want him to do it eventually. So he's like dropping these little, hints for weeks that he doesn't want to do this. Go ahead and get you a touch of coffee.
She has a very light trigger too. It all you got to do is just get your finger around it like that, and it's like, pow. Yeah.
Hey.
My subtleness, I got to work on it. I got to get subtler.
Good morning, Cherry. How are you, sweetheart? Nice to see you here, by the way. So we're going to talk about compromise. When we first moved here, and when we were back in Pawleys Island, we had these visions of this house because we were going to have all this money from selling our house in Pawleys, more money than we've ever had before. To us was a huge. It could have been $5 million to us because we never had money. So having a couple $100,000 to us was just as much as being a millionaire.
We would have still spent it all at the Golden Corral.
We might have eaten out a little bit too much at first. But anyhow, so we had these grand plans because we're going to build it all from scratch. So we didn't need money really. I mean, that was for extra stuff. If we could talk to our older selves, what would you slap us around a little bit, or?
I would.
Yeah, our younger self,
yeah.
And not our older self, our younger self. So anyhow, and not only this, and for those of you that don't know, we had plans when we moved to this land. We were going to live in a tent until the house was built. That was my plan, but thankfully there was a little dilapidated cabin we were able to stay in. It was tiny.
God
that God provided us. We wouldn't have survived living in a tent, and especially with all the flood and rains that they had here. But anyways, we were shortly after, before we cut our first tree, we were contacted by Building Off the Grid, and I want to say it was the History Channel. It's switched ownership a couple times about filming our build. They weren't helping us. They didn't provide a construction crew, but they were on a very tight deadline. They gave us 2 months to build our whole house. We'll talk about that testimony after a while, not today, because it is amazing in itself. It truly is a miracle of God. But we were rushed. I think I took a little sketch on a piece of computer paper and took it to the building and zoning for approval. And Timmy didn't look at that when he was building the house. There were several times I was down in the holler at the cabin because I had work to do. I still had to work while Gavin and Timmy were building, and I had Lyndon to take to school and Morgan to take to school, and life stuff, and fix meals for the guys because there was nothing up here. There was no electric, there was no water, there was no bathroom, there was nothing. And so I would catch up on what they built throughout the day. In the evening, they would tell me what happened. Most of the time it was Daddy got hurt again, and I had to fix them. He was, as soon as I saw the guys, I would normally see Gavin first. I'm like, what happened to Daddy today? And there would always be a story. But anyhow, so I would have to compromise a lot in the thoughts that I had in my head, what I thought I wanted in my homestead when I came up here, and they would be done. Or we realized we couldn't do it in the time frame that we had, or we didn't have the money to do it. There was just so many compromises, and it hurt a little. It was always like the staircase that is in our house. Let me show you real quick. Am I doing that right? See that staircase?
Yeah.
With a little cow? It looks pretty, right? It's like, oh, that's a staircase. But you walk up and you hit your head on the floor upstairs. You contacted the engineer for that one, right?
I think we all made compromises.
We made a lot.
It was, being forced to make a decision right at the moment to, get things done because of the time frame.
And they were here filming, and
I was so far out of my element, just the pressure of, knowing you only have 2 months to do something. And, they want to wrap this thing up. They want to get it edited. And it just, man, dude, I don't even think I put enough nails in this whole thing to hold it together.
Would you quit saying that, please?
I joke about that. No, it was, anyway, it was kind of rushed.
And now you made compromises too, because you worked under a tent for 2 years, 5 years, Anytime you had to build stuff, right? You just worked under a little tarp.
Well,
You didn't get your shop until this year.
yeah, having all of your tools out in the elements and just with a tarp, covering everything.
But what I'm saying is you made the compromise because you really wanted a shop, but I kept having you build a goat manger, a pig area, a chicken coop, you know, Gavin and Ashton's house, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you always dealt without. You made
I know,
compromises.
and well, I mean that, looking back now, I mean, I think we were so wrapped up in the livestock because we were feeling like we needed to have the livestock to be able
Live.
to live, and so it's
Oh, it's taller than you.
you know hindsight. We didn't see it at the moment.
But you have, when you want, well, in any situation, but especially when you're homesteading, it's really, really important to be flexible and make those compromises because life is unpredictable. And if you're going to be in, you're going to, get your knickers in a bunch because you got to make a compromise, you're going to be in a pickle. It's very, very miserable.
It makes the job go really hard
if you're not willing to compromise. Yeah.
And another thing I want to throw into that is we hadn't settled in here yet.
When we were doing
just moving here, and you're still kind of attached to where you were living at, the house and everything. We really didn't feel at home here yet.
The kids made a huge compromise too because I mean they were used to electric and running water and hot baths and internet. So they were, all three of them were really gracious about that. And they were kids are resilient, but they were very easygoing. They were all, I mean, we were really blessed because if any of them would have pitched a fit of what we were doing or how we were living or the transition from where we were to where we are, it would have been so much harder. So we were really, really blessed with that. But, and just for instance, like this year, the compromise, we feel the urgency to grow a lot of food. I'm not physically able to get out in the gardens and do that. And maybe there's a lot of people that I know that or that read and follow us. They're like, oh, I want a homestead, but I'm stuck in the city. We were there too. So we made compromises like, okay, well, we can't do this acre plot of corn, but can we grow successfully a tomato in a container on the porch? Or it's that type of thing. So there's always compromises that you can make from what you want to what you can do right now. And that's where I am with the gardening. It's like I know I can't do, I can't grow a field on the side of the mountain this year, but I can grow in my little raised garden bed in front of our house and sit a chair next to it and work out of that. So there are internal compromises too, when you have to realize your physical limitations. And this might be a funny compromise to y'all, but this is the most recent that like of last night that we've had. Do you know what I'm getting ready to say? Okay. So living here, I am very, very adamant that we either adapt to doing something completely non-electric or at least learn the method to do it. And then even if we have electric in the meantime, if we ever lose it, we'll know how to do that. For instance, let's say make coffee. Well, we still just percolate it over fire, but this is going to be an example you can relate to. Say we were always used to having what are those things called with the itty bitty pods in them that you just push a button and one cup comes out?
Keurig.
Keurig?
Mm-hmm.
Keurig. Say you have a Keurig machine, and don't hate on me because I'm going to use this as an example. But say you have a Keurig machine, you just used to popping a button and pouring out a cup of coffee. We've never had one, but we've seen them. And
you got to have a little pod to put in.
Yeah, they're expensive and a waste.
Yeah.
But anyhow, say you have that, and I think it would behoove you, no matter where you live, to learn how to percolate coffee over a fire. And the reason why I say this, no matter where you live, is because when we were in the city at the beach and we had a hurricane and the entire area lost power for over a week, people were hangry. They were nasty. They were missing their caffeine. They were hating on life. They were coffee addicted and they couldn't get it. And so I was dumbfounded because I'm like, why didn't they just make it over the fire? And then it dawned on me that not everybody knows how to do that. So it would be a good skill to learn. It really, I mean, it's one of those things that could probably stick in your memory bank for a long time. You don't have to repeat it to keep it with you. It's kind of like riding a bike, you know. And if you're desperate, you'll remember. It's like, oh yeah, I remember making that as a Boy Scout. And so you can have that knowledge even if you constantly push the button with a Keurig. If you're ever in a place where you don't have that ability or don't have electricity, it would be in your best interest to learn, right? So that's my mindset moving here. And with everything, I'm like, Timmy, you got a saw? That's great. I want to see you, let's have a whole bunch of plethora of different hand saws. You've got an electric drill. That's great. But let's still get the old timey drills with the cranks to use as a backup. That's my mentality with everything around here, with air conditioning, with heat, all of it. Okay, fast forward. When we moved here, we didn't imagine in a million years that it would be over 100 and something degrees every day, hot as Hades, no wind, no respite, sticky, stinky, sweaty, no air conditioning, no escape. Have I painted a picture yet?
That's good.
So I kind of think I threatened Timmy. It was the summer of 2020, and I told Timmy if he did not get me some escape from this god awful, sticky, humid heat, that I was leaving and going back to the city. And I think I meant it because I normally don't threat without meaning it. And it just so happens, COVID hit, and because we've always had a pool back in Pawleys Island. Let's start there. We've always had a pool back in Pawleys Island. And since Morgan was a baby. And it's just been a very enjoyable part of our life. I had one growing up. You had one growing up.
I had the ocean too.
And he had the ocean. Yeah, I didn't have the ocean growing up. So we always had that you could just jump in the pool, cool off, get out. And it was the summer of 2020 or the spring of 2020 and COVID hit. Well, guess what? We had supply chain issues. You could not find a pool for under $10,000 anywhere in the United States. I looked exhaustively for months. And finally, we resolved to a compromise. We sat there and I said, Timmy, is there any way you can build us a pool? Because I cannot go another summer without it. Now I'll let you take off from there.
You know how I am with punchlines. So I built a swimming pool.
If I ever write a good book, you are not allowed to narrate the story.
Well, I mean, it all started out with a sawmill and cutting down trees and milling.
Okay,
everything.
We don't have to go that far.
It went on for 2 months. It took me 2 months to build it.
All I know is when it was finished, we were in a drought and we don't have water up here. We relied on rain.
We had that much water in it.
So Linda would play like with that much water. I wasn't going in there because by then it was nasty. And it's like, mosquito haven and all that stuff. So it finally filled up, I think, right before the cold snap hit for that season. And but it was beautiful. So anyway, we've enjoyed it for a while.
4,500 gallons of water that pool held.
Which was also,
and it all came out of the sky.
It also doubled as, kind of like if we ever had a fight or anything, we had almost 5,000 gallons of water right at our hand, and we had methods to transport it. So if we needed it, there's, in everything that we do here, it's our first time doing it. Just like Timmy said, I didn't know what I was doing when I was building this house. I mean, he had a construction experience, but he never built a whole house, and dang sure never built one off grid from lumber we milled. So, and the same thing with a pool. It was a concept. He takes my ideas and then he brings them to life, which I love about you, by the way. And so he never did this with experience, and he is a perfectionist, and he sometimes takes my advice and sometimes doesn't. And this time he didn't necessarily take my advice within reason. He dug out as much of the hill because everything here is on mountains. Nothing's flat. So he dug out as much as he could until he hit clay, hard, solid clay that almost acts like rock, solid rock, and just couldn't dig down any further. So one side of the pool was below ground level, and it was nice. But the other side over here was on this like slope. So I wanted him to dig out all of this dirt right here to make it all level right here. So this would have been level like this, but this would have been below ground level too. And he just couldn't with the shovel that he had in the pickaxe. So instead, the slope part, he filled up with like sand and then built the pool on top of it. See the sand on the hill and he built the pool on top? Well, then over the years, the rain came and washed the sand out right here. And it went down and down and down. And then last year we had like almost 5,000 gallons of water in the pool. It was completely full to the brim. That area couldn't hold the vacancy underneath where the sand had washed out anymore. And
it popped.
5,000 gallons of salt water all over the side of our mountain and big old crocodile tears for me. So I've been wanting him to rebuild his pool because here we are in the heat of the summer. And you know what I said before? That threat still stands. If I don't have respite, I ain't staying here. And I wanted him to build this pool, rebuild it. And then I wanted to document it this time because so many people wanted to do the same thing. So I'm like, well, I got to document this time. I didn't do it before. You know, we need to share this knowledge with everybody so they can build a pool. Because Lord knows, you never know when the next supply chain issue is going to happen. They always got their finger on that little button, stopping our way of living. And what have you been doing for several months since I said you're rebuilding the pool?
Crying.
You haven't been subtle about it either, y'all.
It's been uneasy knowing that the day is going to come where I've got to start all over again. I've got to tear down what I started. And I know, you know, that's all I got to say about that.
So here I am thinking in my head, going, I can't get up there and build that pool. And I can either keep my foot up his rear for months while he's wanting the whole time, or I can make a compromise and push a button and buy a pool. I mean, I don't have that kind of money. Just push a button and buy a pool. Don't make it sound like that. I have to finance it through Walmart. But I did. I pushed the button and bought the pool. Mm-hmm. So we're picking up the pool today. However, I will say this. He will rebuild that pool, just at a later date. Mark my words. It will happen. So, and we can still share that information because we did it successfully and it was beautiful for 3 years. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Anybody that was over here thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't ugly. It was aesthetically pleasing. It was very impressive. It had a saltwater filtration system that we'll still use. So there was no harsh chemicals in it, very little upkeep. It's just, that song from church, the wise man built his house upon the rock. This joker built the pool upon the sand. So it just washed out. And that was our life lesson about that. But so I made a compromise. However, the compromise made him happy because he's been dancing since last night. Since he's like, really? And he came in here to Lyndon. He goes, Lyndon, guess what? We're getting a pool. We're getting a pool.
Oh, boy.
And then I'm like, hey, I'm getting a pool.
Yeah.
I'll get my respite. So I guess it's a win-win.
Yeah.
But speaking of compromise, so this is what I kind of this on my heart to talk about. Because we talked about this in church a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And this is, I know we're at the end of our coffee conversation, but we're going to keep on going. So if you're hungry, go get something to eat. If you're thirsty, grab another sip of coffee. If you want to say goodbye. But we really need to talk about this, especially right now in today's world. And Pastor David, which we just love our church. We found a really good church. And if you're not in a church, quit ceasing to assemble. Get your rear in a church. There's plenty of them out there for you to go try them all. But he started talking about compromises, about how we're in this state that we're in right now in the world because Christians have compromised for, in effort to not offend everybody. And like Pastor Dave, he goes, I'm offended. And I've been saying that for years. I'm offended I'm offended by what's going on in this world today. I am offended how they're trampling over our constitutional rights. I am offended how they are attacking our children. I am offended how they're taking away my rights to believe in the Bible. And I'm offended that Christians aren't standing up. It's time that we get offended and quit compromising our values, our morals, and our beliefs as Christians. We're not forcing them on other people, but we should not compromise how we have the right to remove ourselves from the situation, but we should never compromise what God says that we should do just to please other people or to accept it or to be inclusive. That's junk. I was going to say a different word, and I'm glad I didn't say it.
Yeah.
We got to stop compromising as Christians, y'all. That Bible is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. God is not changing. He is the same always and forever. The Bible does not have to keep up with the times. The Christians have to keep up with the Bible.
That's right.
And we should not be compromising just to not offend those.
Mm-hmm.
We can love them. We're called to love the sinner, not the sin. We never accept the sin. Period. Ever. We should not be compromising our values. For instance, here's another one. Most recently, let's do the whole Target thing, okay? Target is really pushing. Well, first they started doing it where grown men can enter the women's bathroom. Not on my watch. Not when I'm there. Not when my daughter is in the bathroom. Those are fighting words.
Yeah.
And there has been so many cases of rape and molestation since they passed that whole thing. I can't imagine what would go through my 11-year-old daughter's head if she's in the bathroom and she's maturing, she's going through puberty and dealing with this, which is an embarrassing situation anyways, to see a grown man come in the bathroom right next to her. No, thank you. So, and then they started pushing that whole LBGTQ RSP stuff or whatever initials you want to say. I mean, not just having a section, pushing it down your throat.
Yeah.
And now they've got I saw the most recent advertisement for Target. They've got Satan, a devil, advertising their new line of wear. Seriously, horns, red mat, they're not even hiding it.
Yeah.
And we decided years ago, we're boycotting Target.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing we can do is speak up with our money. And for instance,
they're making everything like that so common now that it's you're gonna think it's okay.
They're normalizing sin.
Yeah.
And immorality. And Christians are compromising, going, well, it's right there, or well, I needed something from Target. And I'll remind you, I'm just using that as an example. I could give you 1,000 other examples, but this is what we're using. And so you're like, well, I mean, you rationalize in your head why you're supporting them financially, even though they're supporting sin. You're compromising. Stop doing it.
Yeah. There's
other places to go. Give your money to other people. That to me is the biggest way to show. I mean, that go woke stuff, in conservatives and Christians are showing these companies in masses what they think of their woke culture. It needs to be louder. It needs to be clear. It is making a statement, but nowhere near bold enough. If you are a believer, it's time to quit being lukewarm. It's time to quit making compromises because God hates a lukewarm Christian. He'd rather have you a full-blown sinner. Just saying.
Yeah. Quit worrying about offending somebody.
Worry about offending God.
We're the ones that are getting offended, and
worry about offending God. That's who you should be worried about. Don't make compromises on your faith.
Yeah.
There is no compromise when it comes to the Bible. There is no bending the rules. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah. Would you rather stand and be condemned by the world or stand and be condemned by God?
That's what you said stuck with you the most.
Man, I tell you, when you think about that and you really realize what it means, the short time that we're here, I could care less about what people think about me, as long as they know that hey, Jesus died on the cross for me, and that's what it's all about right there.
And following his word. Being saved is more than just going up to the altar and asking Jesus in your heart. It's choosing to lay down, put behind your old ways and pick up the Bible and follow his. That's what you got work to do when you become a Christian, which believe you me, if you're not, that's okay. It isn't a life of rules and can't do this and can't do that. It is a life of freedom. So don't get me wrong. It is a life of love, forgiveness, peace, and freedom. But it's also a life of conviction. It's like every time you do wrong and you do against God's word, you feel that conviction that you're doing something that made God upset. You want to please your parents. And when you become a Christian, you've got work to do. You have to actively choose to follow his ways and make the right choices and and quit making compromises when it comes to his word and what he says is wrong and what he says is right. Don't not do it just because you want to do it. That's your old way. That's not your newborn way. And we have been making way too many compromises as a community of fellow believers in acceptance of this immorality, and it's going to get us all straight to hell. Seriously, we got to quit compromising. That's one. I mean, we talked about how we should compromise on the homestead. And, oh my gosh, we should. But when it comes to our morals and values and what God says is right is wrong, quit compromising as a Christian. Don't accept sin. It's not okay today. It's not okay tomorrow. It wasn't okay yesterday.
Amen.
Sorry. Oh God, I love you. So, anyways, the two just kind of went hand in hand with what was on my heart and what we've been, because I'm still out last night. I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe I just bought that pool. But it's going to make his life easier, and I'm going to have a nice, refreshing swimming pool, so I'm not a bitter old lady all day and I ski. So that was a good compromise. However, you're not going to catch me compromising my values and what God said is right is wrong. I mean, I love you, but I'm going to tell you like it is, and you either take it or you don't, and that's your choice. But if you're a believer, don't compromise. Compromise with your spouse, compromise on the homestead, compromise on the things that you think you want versus what God wants you to do. Compromise and all that, but dang sure don't compromise and accept sin as the normal, because there's nothing normal about it, and we need to be bold and get more vocal. But all right. Anyways, so speaking of church, we need to get on the road, and we need to get just one more cup of coffee in it. But sorry, y'all, I was long-winded. I guess that's what happens when we skip a couple weeks talking. But anyhow, thank you for hanging out with us.
Thanks for watching.
And putting up with me today. Thanks for putting up with me. Bye.